around the facility. We went to the intake area. We were not allowed to go see the medical area. The staff said that because of HIPAA, they can't show us it. That is a complete lie. Um, I have done an unannounced visit to an immigrant detention facility before. I went to Baker. In Baker, I was able to see everything I wanted to see. The medical area, where they eat, everything. I was able to see everything I wanted to see. They did not let us see the medical area. The reason this is important is obviously we want to make sure that there's good medical care, especially given the fact that in the Everglades, there's the hot sun, there's bugs everywhere, all of this going on. But also in many of these facilities, the medical unit is oftentimes used as the segregation unit for different people or a unit of isolation. We were unable to see that. When they showed us the cages, they wouldn't let us go into the actual tent. They let us stand at the door. They opened the door. There was about six security guards standing there, kind of pushing us back, but we could see in and we could hear everybody. And when those doors opened, what I saw made my heart sink. I saw 32 people per cage, about six cages in the one tent. I saw a lot of people, young men who looked like me and people who were my age. People were yelling, "Help me, help me." I heard in the back someone say, "I'm a US citizen." And as we were walking away, they started chanting, "Libertad, libertad, libertad, freedom." Um, and looking into these cages, you could see, of course, it was warm and hot within the tent. People were sweating. Some people had taken off the top of their clothing because it was just so hot. Some of them were drenched in sweat. The food we saw is not enough food. They're being fed essentially a small sandwich and a bag of chips. Um, and not just that, but the conditions outside, of course, it's blazing hot. And the fact that into the cage comes from the toilet. Number one, not everyone's going to be able to drink as much water as they'd like to because of that inconvenience, but also it's gross and it's disgusting. And this is where people are being held. I came to this tour with a binder full of questions. There are questions in this binder. I have accounts of people in the detention facility in the binder. And I also have some names of a few constituents or people who have family members that are constituents. And my intention was to go speak with these individuals. We were denied the ability to speak with any of the detainees there, but I was told by the staff with notice I would be able to meet with whomever I want to meet with. Another question that many local organizers, lawyers, and family had: under what authority are they keeping people in this facility? Is it a state facility or is it a federal facility? We had state legislators go to the internment camp last week and they were denied entry, essentially being told, well, it's more of a federal facility. We were planning an unannounced trip this morning, and somehow the state caught wind of it and decided to invite us to come instead. We know that the reason they invited us is because they wanted it to be an announced trip so they could clean stuff up. But I can tell you, even though they had time to get stuff together and clean things up and make the conditions quote unquote better, the cage is still a cage. The conditions are still bad. They did not allow us to look at the bathroom they are using right now. They brought us into a brand new cage that they had just built that they're hoping they can get online in the next week, but they wouldn't let us go into the actual to see the actual toilets that the people are using. When I asked why, they said, well, it's to keep us safe. But they were in the cage. And I think it's because they didn't want us to see the important condition of the toilets and the bathrooms. We've heard reports even from constituents that are in the facility that even though there's three bathrooms, oftentimes only one of the toilet is working. We've heard multiple reports of backup of the toilets being backed up and feces being essentially sprayed everywhere. So, all in all, every Floridian should be ashamed of the fact that our taxpayer money is being used for this internment camp where people are in horrible conditions in the hot Florida sun. And we said this I said it before I got there, and I say it even louder now. The other thing I'll say is we were able to ascertain that essentially this is a facility that is operated by the state. The state is using their Office of Emergency Management to run the whole operation. This is the same office and staff that are supposed to help us when there's a hurricane. And we're in hurricane season now. It's a gross misuse of resources to dehumanize immigrants and dehumanize people who were all Latino men in this facility. So, my heart is broken leaving this place. It's very emotional to see people caged like that, to see uh, humans caged like that at a time where we have such wealth and equality in this country, where the president just signed a bill that's going to take away healthcare from 2 million Floridians, 17 million people in this country, taking away nutritional assistance, doing nothing to help with the cost of housing, all of these issues. And what's happening, the governor of this state is using our taxpayer money for a stunt. And it's not a stunt with zero victims, it's a stunt that is using humans. And I'm going to continue to fight for the dignity and respect of immigrants in this country who are not poisoning the blood of this nation, but are a part of the nation. I'm the proud son of a Cuban refugee. I will be back to this facility at a time and a date of my own choosing. I don't need permission from anyone to go into that facility, which is a facility where they get the direction from ICE. So that's what I have to say, and we'll open it up for questions.
Michael Jones, I'll go ahead and pass it to you first.
Hey, Congressman, it's Michael Jones from Once Upon a Hill. Good to see you. Hope you're doing all right. Thanks for doing this. I wanted to ask, I know that the center is, stood up by the state, but it's in partnership with DHS. And so I'm wondering, since we're in appropriation season and the DHS bill just made it out of committee and will probably come to the floor before August recess, do you have any plans beyond oversight and public accountability to, I guess, introduce any amendments? Is there any legislation in the works? I know you're limited in what you can do in the minority, but just how are you looking forward to
Yeah.
using your federal kind of the federal power that you have and the coalitions that you have in Congress to continue to kind of use every lever, a legislative lever of power you have to create the change you're trying to see?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. There's a few things. Number one is obviously our ability to conduct oversight. We know that it is in the law that members of Congress cannot be stopped from entering these detention facilities. And part of the thing I really wanted to ascertain here was, is this a federal facility? In which it is. It's just operated by the state. And so we are within our bounds to show. I could show up tomorrow, I could show up the next day, and they have to let me into the facility. I'm going to continue to do that as well. We actually heard reports from many immigrants that are within the facility that said, well, yesterday out of nowhere, they let us take a shower. They hadn't let us take a shower all week. Yesterday out of nowhere, the food, got a little better than it's been before. And of course, all of this is in connection to the tour we were doing. That's why these visits from elected officials are so important in helping to see what's going on, but also help with the conditions on the ground. In terms of our oversight ability, I'm going to be speaking with our brand new ranking member, Robert Garcia, about seeing how we can use our ability to do shadow ad hoc hearings to shine an even bigger light on the human rights issues and on the important conditions within this facility and within facilities across the country. And hopefully we'll have more on that very soon, and on that conversation soon. We're also going to be looking at, yes, and I'm unsure if it'll be via amendment or legislation. And we gotta, I just came out of this facility, and I have a lot more ideas around it. And so we'll keep everybody updated, but we will use every tool we got as members of Congress, whether it's through the appropriations process, filing legislation, or doing ad hoc hearings, continue to conduct the oversight visits. We're going to do everything we can, because what I saw today, like I said before, broke my heart. And everyone should be very pissed off about the fact that our money is being used for an internment camp in the middle of the Everglades.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
Jess Craven, I'll go ahead and pass it to you next.
Thanks. Hi, Congressman Frost. Thank you so much for doing this, especially after what must have been a very, very emotional, I can't even imagine. Thanks for being here. These are very nuts and bolts questions. Do you know how many people are there? Is the gender breakdown, is it all males? And are they from all over the country, or are they all from Florida?
There's just under 1,000 people there right now. Their goal is to get to 4,000 capacity, 4,000 beds by August, in a couple weeks here. Um, they're going to be adding an additional 1,000 beds to it within the next week or so, and we saw that those new cages that they were working on. The demographic, this facility is all males over the age of 18. It is a mix of people. There are a lot of people there who just have a civil offense, or just something very low that they were picked up for, all the way up to people who have done, violent crimes and all in between. There is a wristband system when they arrive that they put on them to determine what kind of offense they had. Most of them being civil offenses and small offenses, and they do not have them segregated. It's just a big hodgepodge of people all put together. And I asked a few questions on mental health issues and on how people can seek mental health help. If they are, if I asked the company, there's a third party company that's doing all the medical work. I'm looking through my notes to try to find the name for you guys. The third party company that's doing all the medical work, I asked them, how often are you asked by the people running the facility who might not be able to be put in the general population because of a mental health condition or because of this and that? They weren't able to answer the questions, and it looks like there's not a ton of communication on that front either. This leads me to another thing that I forgot to mention that I think is really important. This facility, when we first pulled up, it was mainly third-party security companies that were running the parking and the security and all of this. Then we get into the facility, and when we were at the tent where all the cages are, the people holding us back and the people in there dealing with the detainees were from a third-party security company. We barely saw any federal agents. A few people from the National Guard, a few people who are trained law enforcement officers, but it was mainly essentially cops for hire. Not any different than the people who wand you, if you were to go into a concert or go to a sports game. And these are a lot of the folks who are dealing with the detainees, transporting them around the facility, and are essentially running the whole thing. So this is also a huge source of taxpayer money just going to corporations, but also what worries me too is these people do not have the training you need to run a facility like this.
Richard Luscombe, I'll go ahead and pass it to you next.
Hi, Congressman. It's Richard Luscombe with The Guardian. Thanks for this opportunity. Safe travels home. You've actually answered a lot of my questions just in this last bit. I was going to ask what uniforms people were wearing, who were the people doing the guarding. You covered some of that. You said you saw some National Guards, some evidence of federal folks there. In the response to the lawsuit from the environmental groups, the feds were denying anything to do with it. This is all simply a state operation. The state's funding it has nothing to do with us. But you said there were some federal folks there. Do you know who they were, what they were doing, and what role did you see the National Guard playing? Thank you.
It's completely a lie, and this is the problem: is the state is being ambiguous on purpose, because of this lawsuit and because of other things as well. They hesitate to say it's a federal detention center run by the state because then they would have to let us in without any kind of announcement. And so we were told that yes, there are ICE agents there every day, and the ICE agents. I was told this directly from the guy running the whole thing. That ICE tells them exactly what to do. They told them how to put everything together. They gave them the instructions on how to do the cages, on the food, on who's coming in, who's coming out. It's ICE making all the decisions, and he was very clear that the role the state is playing is a logistical role, which is running the operation of the facility. This is a federal facility, and so and we'll be jotting this all down too and putting it out officially so people can understand the conversations I had and that we all had in the place. But I can tell you, every other question we asked, it always ended with, "This is what ICE told us to do."
Cameron Stevenson, I'll pass to you next.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Congressman, for taking the time. I got kind of a two-part question. First, do you know if they have started any deportation flights out of that facility?
What we heard is that no, not yet. But it seems like there might have been some to bring people in. Everyone who's been here, everyone who's been at this facility has been there for about a week, except today when we went into the intake area, there was I would peg it at maybe 30 or 40 people going through the process to come into the facility. We were also told by Kevin Guthrie, who's running the facility, that people will not be there any longer than 2 weeks. That is the max amount of time that they're saying that anyone would spend in the facility. Which,
Okay.
by the way, if it wasn't a federal facility and it was just a state jail or a state facility, that means they would be holding the detainees under an ICE detainer, which is just a few days, not 2 weeks. So that's just another point that shows you that they're under ICE custody and the operations being run by the state.
Okay. And my quick follow-up to that is just since they're holding them, for 2 weeks, they haven't started the flights yet. Are they being booked, processed, and being put into the court system, or do you know if they're avoiding that so they can just?
They're avoiding it, and actually, State Representative Escamani had a conversation with one of the employees there that's doing the intake. They actually have their own intake system that they've made to process people that is separate from the normal system used by the courts. So you could look up things online, and it's done on purpose. It's done so it's all under the books.
Lauren, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you next.
I wanted to thank you, Representative Frost, for today. Wanted to make sure I didn't get a misquote. You said something about they were drinking water through toilets. Can you
There's a
share more?
spigot. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So it's a unit, which is a toilet, and then on top of the toilet, there's a spigot, but it's the same unit. And that's where they drink the water from. And obviously the huge concern is obviously one of cleanliness, which is the fact that it's the same unit as where people are shitting. And when someone's using the restroom, if you really need to drink water, I mean, you have to wait until you go to drink the water. But their drinking water comes from the spigot that is in the toilet unit, and that's the drinking water they get in the cage. When they go to the dining hall to eat, they have jugs of water that they have there.
Thank you.
Ariella, I'll pass it to you next.
Hi, Maxwell. Thank you so much for doing this. You mentioned that state representatives are not able to get in. Is there any talk of you and other members of Congress helping them get in the door?
Yeah, so something I overheard is there was a conversation going on with the state representative who was asking about the authority to see detainees and let people in. And what I overheard is she said, not to be disrespectful, but you have a different authority, or the members of Congress have a different authority than you as a state legislator. Something else that they brought up, actually, I have a quote here. I wanted to make sure we were on the same page, that we are allowed to come in unannounced whenever. Kevin Guthrie said, quote, if you come, we will work with you in real time. I'll say during the whole time we kept reiterating this, not once did they say, we're not going to let you in. And they were very clear that there is huge federal involvement of the facility, especially from ICE. And the appropriation language is very clear. If it is a facility run by or for the Department of Homeland Security, we have to be let in. ICE is calling all the shots in the facility. That's what we learned today, and so they have to let us in.
And you're going to help get state reps in as well, since you can get in, but they can't necessarily?
I would need to look at the statute that they're citing specifically, but to me, it makes sense that state representatives be allowed to go in the facility as well, because it is operated by the state. The Department of Emergency Management's running the whole thing. That's a state agency.
Megan Bowman, I'll pass it to you next.
Thanks, Representative, and thanks for going out there today. DeSantis had previously said that, detainees would have access to attorneys, things like that. Did you see anything there that they would be offered like that? And also, as far as protection from mosquitoes, was anything like that provided? And then,
Yeah.
finally, did you see plans like for an evacuation if a storm comes?
Yeah, there's no kind of mosquito prevention or anything like that. In fact, the driver who just happened to be driving our van around the facility, I kind of casually asked him about the bug situation. He's a staff member here, and even he said, "Yeah, it's horrible. I get bit up every day. I'm getting bit all the time." And that's a member of the staff who can bring some off spray. These detainees don't get anything to help protect themselves from all the bugs, and in many cases, as we know in the Everglades, bugs that could be harboring some sort of disease or sickness or anything like that. Your other question, I'm sorry, what was your other question?
Well, I also asked, DeSantis said they'd have access to attorneys. So did you?
Attorneys, yes. So part of the reason I brought my binder is we have a checklist of exactly legally what's supposed to be in a ICE detention facility. And part of the reason I was going down that list is to understand, are they treating this like a detention facility or not, to understand if it's federal. And they are. So there is a law library there, which is a fancy term for a place where you can talk with your lawyer over the phone. We saw that space, but here's the issue. We're hearing that, number one, oftentimes the phones don't work. There are 3 phones in each cage. What we have heard from some of my constituents that are there right now is oftentimes there's only 1 phone that works. And that's something to keep in mind. And the phones aren't always on, right? They turn them off and on. Some of the attorneys locally have told us they've gotten calls in the middle of the night. We've also heard that sometimes the light is kept on at night where the cages are. We actually asked the people at the facility, what is the schedule for the lights on and the lights off? They said they could not provide that to us. And we've heard firsthand accounts that the lights are left out at night in many cases as well. Another big issue that lawyers have talked to me about before I came is that how can I go in there and see my client, see the person I'm representing, and speak with them face to face? They really have not been able to do that at all. I asked directly to the general counsel at the facility how they could do it, and I received an email and a phone number, and I was also told that this is available on the website, even though I've been told people haven't been able to find it. The email is legal at privacy6.com. Legal at privacy6.com. Apparently, you can email that and they will set up the visit for the lawyer. And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that 6 the number or 6 spelled out?
6 the number.
Thank you.
Legal at privacy6.com. And so we'll be working with a lot of our local attorneys to see if that's legitimate or not.
Thank you so much. And then I guess really, did you see any plans for an evacuation if a storm comes?
We asked about the evacuation. Yeah, what they said is, they would make game time decisions. And if they feel like a storm is rolling up, whether it's a hurricane or just a thunderstorm or rain, which everyone should know, of course, if there is a category 1 hurricane, you're going to have to leave this area. Remember, this facility in this airport, they were building it up to be a huge airport in that area for a lot of commercial freight planes to come in, and they abandoned the whole thing because of the environmental concerns and because it wasn't conducive to that type of infrastructure because it's in the middle of the swamp. And so, yeah, a category 1 hurricane, you're going to have to evacuate, but it's not just hurricanes, just any kind of heavy rainfall, and you'll see it flood, which of course we've received tons of reports of flooding already in the space. What they told us is that if they feel like, there's danger, they will evacuate everyone out of the site, and essentially everything that was built would be lost or damaged, which shows again that they are grossly misusing our taxpayer money, $450 million for this facility in the middle of the Everglades. When the first storm comes, which could be literally tomorrow, we are in hurricane season, everything could be wiped away or damaged pretty quickly. But what they said they would do is they would just bust everybody out of there.
Thank you.
Dara, Cam, I'll pass it to you for the final question.
Thank you very much, Congressman, for doing this. I spoke with an attorney yesterday who said she was unable to get access to her clients and unable to get answers to questions about who was operating the facility, things that you've addressed. I was wondering, I have a couple of quick questions. One is, will you be sending out to us all the notes? I mean, the contractors that you identified in your notes? It's been very difficult if you're not on the ground there to figure out who's doing what. If we
Yeah.
could get that information from you. In addition, um, is there is there a protocol, a written protocol or a written process that says how they are processing individuals and how they're, the decision points to get to the facility, and then once they get there, how they're being processed? Because we have not been able to get that from the DeSantis administration either.
Yes. So yeah, I will be probably putting out some sort of public statement or something from our office, kind of detailing what I saw. And yeah, we will include the names of some of the companies. Garter World is the third party company in charge for a lot of the logistics and security. Also, Delta Foxtrot Solutions had some armed guards there as well. And I have a few other ones. I My notes are all over the binder, and so I'll have to, we'll kind of put this together and send it out. I also have the organization doing all the medical work there as well. Your other question on how they're processed and where they're coming from, what we were told is explicitly only ICE transports them. But last night, Representative Escamani was driving in Miami to come over here, and she saw two Florida Highway Patrol vehicles with lights on, and then a military, or not a military, a prisoner kind of transport bus going to the Everglades facility. And we asked about that, and he said, "Oh, well, Florida Highway Patrol isn't transporting the detainees, but they were escorting the bus." And so I'll tell you that there is probably, and it depends on whether they've signed one of the two 87G agreements. And I can tell you, at least in Orange County, and not just Orange, around the state, ICE is asking a lot of the local law enforcement departments to amend their IGSA agreement to essentially help them with transporting people as well. Most of the people at the internment camp in the Everglades right now have come from Chrome to help decompress Chrome. There are people there from across the entire country, though. And we were told that explicitly. There are people, not everyone came from Chrome, but the people who didn't come from Chrome, they're not just from Florida, they're from across the entire damn country. And we don't, we were not able to understand exactly under what authority is this happening under. We asked if they have an IGSA with the federal government that allows them to bring people from random states to this state operated facility. Did not get a straight answer. I asked them under what authority are they doing all of this under. They said it's under their 287G agreement. So, there's still a lot of questions we have on the legality of everything.
Yeah, I guess that just as a quick follow-up, should there be, you said you've been to other camps, should there be some sort of written protocol where the procedures are, where anyone
Yes. Yeah, there should be a SOP, standard operating procedure, for the facility. Unable to get any of this kind of stuff. It's a complete hodgepodge thrown together. There's so many different. Someone asked me about what kind of uniforms I saw, who I saw there. I mainly saw third-party cop for hire, security companies everywhere running the whole thing. I saw some people from the National Guard. I saw some folks from we saw National Guard. Some of the State Guard was there, which is DeSantis's private militia that that Tallahassee gave him a few years ago. So it's just kind of a hodgepodge of people from a lot of different agencies, but it's mainly these third-party companies that have been hired.
Thank you very much.
Congressman, before we wrap it up, there's a question in the chat about the funding for the facility, about the 450 million and who's exactly on the hook for that.
State funds, mainly state funds. Now, if you were to ask the governor about this, and Kevin Guthrie got a little defensive about it too, he'd say, well, we're being reimbursed this and that per person. We're still looking into that, if that actually is going to happen. But let's say they're getting some sort of per head reimbursement from the federal government. Number one, and I know this from experience from where I'm from, and the reimbursement that's happening with the ICE detainers, it doesn't cover everything. And usually it's enough money to cover, some of the food and that kind of stuff. But to build this thing, this is state money. And the price tag that they put out there, which was the 450, we know it's going to be a lot more than that. They had to pave roads in under a week. Not just that, but they built all this infrastructure in under a week. And the speed of it all is part of what makes the price tag so high.
All right, if there are no more questions, I'll go ahead and end the call. I want to thank you all so much for joining, and you should also be receiving an email in the next few minutes with the recording of the call. All right. All right, have a good one, y'all. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.